Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm talking about what it means to have Venus conjunct to Saturn in Synastry. Now, this one is one of the most heavy and karmic aspects that you could have. Not necessarily negative, but it definitely has an eerie feeling of fatedness. So, this is something that both people feel very strongly. The Venus person can be working out some kind of father issues with this conjunction. Now, the nature of these issues will be shown by the sign of the Venus Saturn conjunction. What sign is this taking place in is going to be a major theme of this relationship. But really, Venus Saturn aspects are so common in relationships that last. And this could be lasting for a few months, a few years, a lifetime, many lifetimes. Venus and Saturn actually do pretty well together. Some astrologers would say that it's because of Saturn being exalted in Libra. Venus Saturn aspects are more common than not to show up in relationships that last. And they're not necessarily romantic or flowery or sexual in nature. It's more just durable. And yeah, this one is going to be the most powerfully felt out of any of the Venus Saturn aspects. It might be, depending on the people, the conjunction can be too much of a wet blanket. Like, it can feel like too much Saturn for the Venus person. It can feel like the Saturn person is too critical of Venus at times. But with the conjunction more than the square or the opposition, the fathering could be coming from the female partner too. So it's not always going to be that the Saturn person is a male, right? Or is the masculine principle if it's a, same-sex relationship or whatever. That's not always the case that the Saturn is the man, but the Saturn is going to have this fathering energy towards Venus. That is one of the themes. And with the conjunction, though, the fathering is done in a protective way. The Saturn person feels a lot for Venus, and Venus can be seen as something worth committing to, something like that if they give their heart to Venus, they're going to get something worthwhile out of it. Like, this is helpful. It's maybe difficult. It's maybe hard. It's definitely hard. It's not an easy aspect, the conjunction, but it's worth doing. And Venus can feel the same way, but they could also feel that over time, if this is existing in a long-term relationship, if there's not more fun aspects, Venus could feel really inhibited or really judged by the Saturn person over time. But it depends on how the Saturn person uses their Saturn too, and like the sign that this is taking place in, because a Venus conjunct Saturn in Capricorn is going to have a lot more of the critical qualities than like Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces, right? So you have to look at how the Saturn person is going to be with their Saturn and whether Venus wants that kind of energy, because Venus is what we want. So like a more lighthearted Venus sign isn't necessarily going to like this as much as like even Venus in Capricorn would like this kind of connection more, probably, right? Because it's what they're used to. It's what they're familiar with, having their Venus already ruled by Saturn. So, but it's definitely heavy. Whatever sign this conjunction is taking place in, this is one of those aspects that it's just, yeah, it's almost eerie. Like, we get this feeling like, oh my God, like, this relationship, this person, I can't get away, I can't let go, even if I need to, I can't stop thinking about them, because there's growth here, there's valuable growth here, there's lessons to be learned. The Venus person is learning about self-love, and the Saturn person is learning maybe the same thing. Like, Venus opens up Saturn's heart more, and Saturn provides structure and stability for Venus. Now, I have read in one of my Synastry books that this conjunction, or Venus-Saturn aspects in general, can show up in a relationship where financial abuse is there. So there could also be a financial component to this relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be Saturn being the one with the money. It could also be Venus, but there could be sort of some unequal interplay going on, or like there's lessons to be learned about managing resources, because Venus is to do with our money as well, our self-worth, how we love, what we find pleasurable. So the Venus person can feel very attracted to the Saturn person, while at the same time feeling over time that maybe they're too boring, or, you know, not allowing them to be themselves, or the way that they love, or the way that they dress, or, you know, it's never good enough kind of thing. But it really depends on like the rest of the synastry too, if this conjunction is going to just feel really inhibiting or really structuring. So they definitely help each other structure their life and become more grounded. And, you know, even though this is essentially a difficult or negative aspect, well, not negative, there's no such thing as negative aspects. This one, it can be really hard to let go of. It can be one of those relationships where it just stays forever. They just stay together forever. They just cannot let go. It's just that powerful. So it's definitely an interesting one, and it's definitely shows up. All Venus-Saturn aspects show up a lot in synastry of couples that do become committed and do become married, because Venus and Saturn really are a good match. It's just how much do they want to hear from each other. You know, it's like you got to be ready. Are you ready to grow? Are you ready for seriousness? Or do you just want life to be a fun party? Then you need Venus Jupiter. Now, if you have both, that would be amazing. So you have to look at the whole synastry, because yeah, you could have a Venus conjunct Saturn and a Venus trine Jupiter, and then you're going to have the best of both worlds. So yeah, that's would be something really good to have along with this. But this does tend to show longevity. Something about the conjunction is that it might even be too powerful and too serious to have a relationship. It can happen that this is something that never becomes something, just because, not that the feeling isn't there, it's like the feeling is so there, but if the people are like too immature, the relationship can never form, because this is a serious relationship. It is not lighthearted, and you have to be ready for this kind of connection. And, you know, it's definitely a karmic connection, and it could be very negative. So it's, you know, if it doesn't happen, if you had this aspect with someone and it doesn't end up turning into a relationship, maybe you just saved yourself from a huge karmic lesson. I've seen that many times, where like a relationship with this aspect will come close to forming, and then the people hesitate and it doesn't happen. And maybe that was all it was ever meant to be, because this, you got to be ready for this, and you will grow. It can be especially hard on Venus, but Venus can really get some structuring to their life, their finances from Saturn. And Saturn can really lighten up and feel loved by Venus. And so there really is a deep love there, but it just can be a very faded, difficult love. This could be a relationship that started many lifetimes ago and you had a vow. That's what it says in my Karmic Connections book, one of my favorite Synastry books, that this can show up when you have like a commitment vow to someone. Like you said in some other lifetime, I will be with you forever in all lifetimes. And then you get to the next lifetime and it's like, there's a subtle remembrance of that. And here you are. So yeah, this is a sort of a mindfuck of an aspect. I'd love to know your experience of this one. Was it like this? Was it not like this at all? Let me know in the comments, you guys. And thank you for watching. Thanks for requesting this one. Talk soon. Bye.